Marcus Allen and George Rogers all won handily. The decision this time, less than an hour away, remains in genuine doubt. During the course of this program, we're going to relive some of the glories of Heisman Trophy winners past, as well as take a look at the greatness of the present contenders. And it'll all be leading up to the live presentation of the 51st Heisman Trophy. Stay with us.
As this college football season began, experts throughout the country made their predictions as to who would be the leading candidates in the battle for the 1985 Heisman Memorial Trophy. But this year, as was the case in 1984, unforeseen events have upset many of the predictions. Last year, the 50th year of the Heisman Trophy, two of the preseason favorites were Bo Jackson of Auburn and Napoleon McCallum of the Naval Academy. But for each man, the second game of the season saw the end of their Heisman hopes. McCallum broke his ankle in Navy's second game against Virginia and was out for the remainder of the season. On this play against Texas, Bo Jackson of Auburn severely injured his shoulder. He continued in the game, not realizing the seriousness of his injury. Jackson missed the next 6 games before returning to play in Auburn's final 5 games, but he was not considered in the Heisman balloting. The injuries to McCallum and Jackson paved the way for the overwhelming victory of Doug Flutie of Boston College, the winner of the 50th Heisman Trophy. Both Jackson and McCallum recovered from their injuries, and before this 1985 season began, were again highly considered as Heisman candidates. They were joined in the preseason predictions by 4 magnificent players who finished in the top 10 in last year's balloting. Keith Byers of Ohio State, who finished second behind Flutie. Robbie Bosco of Brigham Young, third in the voting. Ken Davis of TCU, 5th in the balloting. And Chuck Long of the University of Iowa, 7th. But the 6 leading candidates quickly became 4. Keith Byers was the first to meet disaster. In a preseason practice session, he broke his right foot and missed the first 5 games of the season. Byers, who led the nation last year in rushing and scoring, returned on October 19th. With little practice and playing less than half a game, Byers nevertheless rushed for more than 100 yards and scored 2 touchdowns.
From Boston College, Doug Flutie.
As Keith Byers watched Doug Flutie accept the Heisman Trophy last year, there were thoughts of the 1985 season. To join 4 other Ohio State players, all winners of the Heisman Memorial Trophy. Les Horvath, 1944. Vic Janowitz, 1950. Hopalong Cassidy, 1955. And his idol, Archie Griffin, the only player to win the Heisman twice, in 1974 and 1975.
The Heisman Trophy symbolized, commitment to excellence, that you're the best. And making All-American is a great feat, and I don't think it should never be a second play, but when you win the Heisman, that's like the All-American of All-Americans. That's just a great reward. I finished runner-up last year, and I got to see all the pageantry that went along with it, and it made me feel, much more confident that I wanted to get back there and be the person stepping to the podium to receive the award.
Keith Byers finished his college football career this year. But for him, ironically, the road to the 1985 Heisman Trophy ended before the season began. This is Coach Jim Wacker of Texas Christian University and his All-American running back, Ken Davis. Before the season began, Coach Wacker and Ken Davis were given the credit for the resurgence of TCU football. Last year, in his second season as head coach, Wacker led the Horned Frogs to their first winning season since 1971. And for the first time in over 20 years, TCU was one of the top 20 college teams in the country. The main reason, the magnificent ability of junior all-purpose back Ken Davis. Davis rushed for more than 1,600 yards, averaging more than 7.5 yards a carry, and scored 17 touchdowns. He also accounted for 200 yards in pass receptions and finished third in the nation in all-purpose yardage. Ken Davis's abilities were so great that TCU fans had visions that he would become their first Heisman winner, since little Davy O'Brien was named the 4th winner of college football's most coveted award 47 years ago in 1938. Last year, Jim Wacker was voted the Coach of the Year by the Sporting News and several other national organizations. Not only was he honored for his magnificent coaching ability, but he was also acclaimed for his belief in the integrity of the game.
We really tell our kids when we start recruiting them from day one, hey, we want you 3 things to happen in your life. Number 1, we want you, if you come, to be the best person you can be, character-wise, integrity, honor, whatever. Number 2, we want you to be a student athlete. You're going to be the best student you can be because that's 1,000 times more important than whether you're a great football player or not. That's what a university is all about. Number 3, I want you to be the best football player you can be because it's the greatest game in the world.
TCU won their first game of the 1985 season. But on the eve of their second game, Coach Jim Wacker of the Horned Frogs announced that 6 of his players were permanently barred from playing football at TCU for receiving illegal financial payments. One of the 6, Heisman candidate Ken Davis.
I want to find kids that cannot be bought because Wacker ain't buying any, and neither is anyone else associated with our program. I'm coming up front on that one right now.
This is senior Alan Pinkett of Notre Dame. 3 years ago as a freshman, many believed that Pinkett had all the abilities necessary to make him the 7th Notre Dame player in history to win the Heisman Trophy. Though Pinkett had a marvelous 1985 season, becoming the all-time Fighting Irish rushing leader, it is thought unlikely that he will be considered by the nation's voters as the finest football player in the country. But incredible things happen in sport, particularly at Notre Dame. Consider the year 1956. In baseball, Don Larson of the New York Yankees pitches a perfect World Series game, setting the opposition down without allowing a batter to reach first base. At the Grand National Steeplechase, Devin Locke, owned by the Queen Mother, is 50 yards away from winning Great Britain's most prestigious horse race. Then, incredibly, Devin Locke leaps what is known as the phantom jump and loses his chance at racing immortality. In college football, there is much speculation as to which football player will be named the 22nd winner of the Heisman Memorial Trophy. The candidates, a who's who of all American football players who will prove their greatness later as professional superstars. Tommy McDonald, Oklahoma. Ron Kramer, Michigan. John Brody, Stanford. Jim Parker, Ohio State. Joe Walton, Pittsburgh. And Jim Brown, Syracuse. The winner, 20-year-old Paul Hornung of Notre Dame. Hornung's selection over the other main contenders is even more impressive because Notre Dame's 1956 season's record was 2 victories and 8 defeats, one of the worst in their long history. Paul Hornung is still the only Heisman winner in the 50-year history of the award to play on a team with such a poor record. Hornung was practically a one-man team in his senior year at Notre Dame, both on offense and defense. He finished 2nd in the nation in individual offense and led the Fighting Irish in many categories: rushing, passing, scoring, kickoff returns, field goals, extra points. On defense, he led Notre Dame in breaking up passes and finished 2nd in tackles and pass interceptions. Hornung thus became the 5th player from Notre Dame to win the Heisman Trophy, the most of any college football team. Hornung came to Notre Dame in 1953, the year that Johnny Latner won the Heisman Trophy. Traditionally, Notre Dame coach Frank Leahy would assign a senior football player to act as a big brother to a newly arrived freshman.
The 4 weeks that I was Paul Horning's big brother, he taught me more about Notre Dame and South Bend. I never knew that they had that many different spots in South Bend that I hadn't seen in 4 years. Paul was a great guy, really enjoyed him. He knew the night spots better than I did, and I certainly had a lot of fun with him in those 4 weeks that I was his big brother.
I was a freshman, he was a senior. We were not eligible for play on the varsity, and Coach Leahy would bring me up punting and kicking off and doing the various things against the varsity. And Latner had told me a few times, he said, I was always so nervous when you would come up because he would put you and I together and punt, and I didn't want any freshmen out punting me, and it was always a nervous situation for me, even though you weren't going to play.
During the 1956 season, his senior year, Paul Horning was magnificent, but he could not do it alone. Notre Dame's season was disastrous. They lost 8 games. But Horning's performance was so special, it was not overlooked by the voters for the Heisman Trophy, the award given for individual excellence.
He just proved himself time and time again. Now, here's a situation where Notre Dame was 2-8 when Paul Horning won the Heisman Trophy. He was just an all-around football player, another 60-minute man. Value to a team is how they decide Heisman Trophy winners, and although the Notre Dame record was bad, Paul Horning was certainly a great, great football player.
In early December 1956, Paul Horning received the Heisman Trophy. After graduation, Horning signed with the Green Bay Packers for the 1957 season. For 2 years, he would play with only moderate success. In 1959, Vince Lombardi took over as head coach of the Packers.
My first 2 years at the Green Bay was a nightmare. We won 3 ball games in 2 years, and having been at Notre Dame with the great tradition, and even though we lost 8 ball games my senior year, there was great rapport between the coaching staff and the players and the fans. I had never experienced anything like this. And then, of course, Lombardi arrived, and those days were gone forever.
Under Vince Lombardi, there was an immediate change of fortune for Paul Horning and the Green Bay Packers. Horning led the league in scoring for the next 3 years. During the 1961 season, the Berlin crisis required the calling back into service of many members of the United States Army Reserve. One of them was Paul Horning.
On 2 or 3 of the weeks, I couldn't get out. My unit wouldn't let me get out for the week. In fact, I was the only football player that missed any games while I was in the service. The other ones were always let out on weekend passes. So I called Coach. I said, Coach, I won't be able to play in the championship game because I've got to take my Christmas vacation the first 2 weeks. He says, no, you hold on. And so he had President Kennedy's home number, and he called the president, and within 24 hours, I was released from Fort Riley, Kansas to go back and play in the championship game.
Paul Horning scored 19 points as the Packers defeated the New York Giants 37-0. For his magnificent performance, Horning was named the championship's most valuable player. April 17th, 1963 was the darkest day in Paul Horning's career. It was then that Commissioner Pete Rozelle suspended Paul Horning and Alex Karras indefinitely for betting on league games.
Of course, now hindsight's better than foresight. You can always see afterwards the wrong that you have done rather than seeing the wrong that you're doing at the time.
I never had any animosity towards Pete Rozelle as far as the suspension was concerned. And sure, many people said, Paul, you don't really honestly believe that you and Karras were the only two that were betting on some professional football game. I said, I don't care about anybody else. You got to care about yourself in this situation because you're the one that's on the spot. So I went through it. I served my year sabbatical, and I was very, very happy when the National Football League reinstated Paul Horning. It was probably the happiest day of my life.
After 1 year, Horning's suspension was lifted, and he played 3 more seasons before retiring in 1967.
I loved
playing professional football. I love playing college football. It's been the best experience of my life. I think all athletes, whatever sport they participate in, if they really can't look back and say it was probably the most fulfilling and the most rewarding and the happiest times of their lives. All athletes are kids. You don't realize it till you get out in the business world and you get out with people and you start getting a little bit older and hopefully a little bit wiser, that those are really the fun times in your life. And Paul Hornung had a lot of fun and enjoyed it. And looking back, it was absolutely the best time for me.
Earlier this week, Paul Hornung received another honor. 29 years after playing his last college football game, he was inducted into the National Football Foundation's College Football Hall of Fame. This is Pat Sullivan of the University of Auburn. In 1971, Sullivan beat Ed Marinaro of Cornell and Greg Pruitt of Oklahoma to win the Heisman Trophy. Sullivan was an outstanding football player in college, but because his 4-year professional career was uneventful, he remains one of the least remembered Heisman winners in the 50-year history of the award. Over the past few seasons, memories of Pat Sullivan's football career have been revived by the amazing exploits of Vincent Bo Jackson, who many believe will be the second Auburn player to win the Heisman Trophy. Their appearance together has historic significance. Pat Sullivan is the only Heisman winner to have attended a school coached by John W. Heisman, for whom the trophy is named. If Bo Jackson wins, he will become the second. Many believe that Bo Jackson is the greatest all-around athlete to play football since the legendary Jim Thorpe, who besides playing college and professional football, won Olympic gold medals in both the pentathlon and decathlon at the 1912 Olympics, and then went on to play Major League Baseball with the New York Giants. Bo Jackson stands 6 feet 1 inch tall and weighs 220 pounds. In high school, Jackson twice won the state decathlon championship. His fastest time on the 100 meters would have placed him second, just inches behind Jesse Owens at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. But Bo Jackson's speed and running power on the football field may end this season, since he is also a highly rated college baseball player as the center fielder and batting star for Auburn. This year, before joining the football team, he batted .401 with 17 home runs and 43 runs batted in. In high school, he turned down a multi-year contract with the New York Yankees in order to go to Auburn.
Football is my favorite sport when it's in season, and baseball is my favorite sport during the spring. My love for both sports are the same.
Though Jackson missed half the 1984 season because of a shoulder injury, his average of nearly 7 yards per carry throughout his career has made him Auburn's all-time rushing leader. And this season he gained almost as many yards rushing as Pat Sullivan's passing and rushing total in 1971, the year Sullivan won the Heisman Trophy. Pat Sullivan owns his own business in Birmingham, Alabama, but on weekends he is the broadcaster for the Auburn football team.
I've seen a lot of athletes at different times impress me. I remember when I was being recruited in college, went to Notre Dame, and they were playing Southern Cal, and O.J. Simpson was the running back. And I remember he ran and he broke to the outside and came by the sideline where we were standing, just outran everybody. The most phenomenal thing I'd ever seen at the time. Bo Jackson has that kind of thing. I'd say it whether he was at Alabama or Southern Cal or Notre Dame or Tennessee or Florida or whatever. Herschel Walker was another one. Herschel first went to Georgia. Phenomenal, phenomenal. I've seen him do some things that are tremendous. Bo is that kind of athlete. If Bo makes his mind up to want to do something, he is the finest athlete I've ever seen, and that includes Herschel or O.J.
But for now, the decision to play baseball or football must be delayed, as Bo Jackson awaits the naming of the 1985 Heisman Trophy winner.
I have to pass Pat Sullivan's Heisman Trophy at least 7 or 8 times weekly. And there isn't a day that goes by that when I pass there that I could see a Heisman Trophy sitting there one day maybe with my name on it.
Bo Jackson, the early favorite in what apparently has become a very close Heisman Trophy race. We'll be right back after these messages from your local Downtown Athletic Club in New York City. Now we're less than half an hour away from the naming of the 51st Heisman Trophy winner. Some of the leading candidates are here. Now, Robbie Bosco of Brigham Young is playing this weekend in Hawaii, but Chuck Long, the outstanding Iowa quarterback, Rose Bowl bound, is here. Lorenzo White, the super sophomore from Michigan State, Bo Jackson of Auburn, and Miami Hurricane quarterback Vinny Testaverde. Underclassmen like Testaverde and Lorenzo White face long odds in the Heisman voting, but regardless of how this year's balloting comes out, it's certain they'll be among the leading contenders next year. They'll face competition from dozens of young stars, one of whom might be freshman quarterback Jamal Holloway of Oklahoma. It was 10 years ago that another freshman began his career with the Oklahoma Sooners, and soon that young man would become the finest college football player in the country.
Soon after, Doug Flutie of Boston College was named the 50th winner of the Heisman Trophy last year. He became the 42nd recipient to move on to professional football. Many Heisman winners have become professional superstars and have been fortunate enough not to have their careers ended by serious injury. But there is one Heisman winner who went on to star in the pro ranks, whose 11-year college and professional career has been plagued with adversity. Nevertheless, he is considered one of the greatest runners in the history of the game. His name, Billy Sims. Today, 30-year-old Billy Sims spends much of his time at his home in Hooks, Texas. He is again at the crossroads, not knowing whether he will ever play football again. Billy Sims' battle against injury began 10 years ago at the University of Oklahoma when he was a 20-year-old freshman. Then his football career almost ended before it began.
When I went into college, I had a lot of injuries, so I really didn't see much playing time my freshman year. And my sophomore year, I cracked my right shoulder, so I missed the entire season. And coming off my sophomore redshirt year, I injured my Achilles, so I still had a bad season. So that's 3 years that I had put in part-time at the University of Oklahoma. And I just felt maybe the game was over for me, and at times I had thought about quitting. Another important thing that Coach Switzer, Barry Switzer, never did give up on me.
Billy was thinking about leaving Oklahoma, and we, of course, you know, you recruit a great player like that, you've got to do what's necessary to keep him here and make him see that this is an emotional decision, not one with rationale involved. And I think he fought through that, as all freshmen do, their freshman year, some tough times, and that was one of them for him.
In 1978, Billy Sims was without injury for the first time since coming to Oklahoma. With 2 years of football eligibility left, Sims was unstoppable. He led the nation in scoring and rushing, averaging 160 yards a game. 4 times he ran for more than 200 yards in a single game, and incredibly averaged more than 7 yards every time he carried the football. Oklahoma won 9 straight games and was ranked #1 in the nation as they prepared to meet their perennial rival, Nebraska. Billy Sims was again magnificent. Though he has rushed for 150 yards and scored both Oklahoma touchdowns, the Sooners nevertheless trail Nebraska 17-14 with 3 minutes left to play. The Oklahoma defense holds Nebraska. They move the ball to the Cornhusker 20-yard line. The pitch out is to Sims. At the 3-yard line, he is hit hard and fumbles. Nebraska recovers and holds on to win the game. Oklahoma loses its #1 ranking, but Billy Sims is named the 44th winner of the Heisman Trophy. He becomes only the 6th junior to be so honored.
People asked me in the locker room, said, did Billy Sims deserve the Heisman Trophy since he fumbled? My answer to that was that, well, no, he didn't deserve it if all other Heisman Trophy winners have never fumbled.
After Billy Sims won the Heisman Trophy, a holiday was declared in the little town of Hooks, Texas.
Well, they had Billy Sims Day. You know, anything Billy Sims wanted to do, I could do it. But, you know, everybody in town came out for a big celebration down at the football field, had a dinner. I have a road about 3 miles from here where I used to live named after me. And, well, now it's paved. It used to be a dirt road.
The following season, in his senior year at Oklahoma, 24-year-old Billy Sims is again outstanding. He is again named All-American and finishes second behind Charlie White of USC in the balloting for the Heisman Trophy. He leads the Sooners to another outstanding year, 10 victories and 1 defeat, and a second successive victory in the Orange Bowl.
I think there's no doubt in my mind that he was the best player in America. He was the #1 player for 2 years in the United States. He would have been the first player picked in the 1978 draft when he won the Heisman. 1979, he was the first player picked. He was the best player in the United States.
After graduation, Billy Sims signed to play pro ball with the Detroit Lions for what was reported to be the largest contract ever given a first-round draft choice. Sims repaid the Lions' investment by being named the 1980 Rookie of the Year. For the next 3 years, Billy Sims was one of the most feared running backs in the National Football League. But midway through the 1984 season, he severely injured his knee and has not played for almost 2 seasons. He may never play again.
I'm not a quitter, so I've been, working on it real hard and still trying to come back as soon as possible. Hopefully, with the hard work I've been doing on my leg and everything, it'll give me a chance to come back and see if I can continue to play football. But if not, I can hold my head up high. I had a beautiful career, and with the Heisman Trophy, basically the highlight of my career, and having a chance to play professional football, really there's nothing else I could do but except be happy and go on with my life.
This is the campus of Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah, 45 miles south of Salt Lake City. The university is operated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly known as the Mormon Church. Until the last decade, most Americans associated the university with the historic trek of Brigham Young and his party, who in the year 1846 marched 1,400 miles to the valley of the Great Salt Lake to avoid religious persecution. In recent decades, the association has been with the world-renowned Mormon Tabernacle Choir. However, in the last few years, the achievements by athletes of the Mormon religion have brought a newfound publicity to the nearly 6 million people throughout the world who practice the Mormon faith. Olympic gold medal winning gymnast Peter Vidmar is a Mormon. So too is track star Henry Marsh. Also Danny Ainge of the Boston Celtics, Dale Murphy of the Atlanta Braves, and one of the heroes of the 1985 World Series, Dane Orge of the Kansas City Royals. But the greatest exposure to the religion has come in the past decade from the football field, from the amazing passing quarterbacks of Brigham Young University.
Well, we have a very unique university. We acknowledge that. We're proud of that. When the Mormons first came to these valleys, the first thing they did were establish schools, and BYU is kind of a remaining symbol of that commitment to education. The very motto of the university is that the glory of God is intelligence. The university is not limited to Latter-day Saints. We set standards that are higher here than are expected in our conference, and our conference sets standards that are higher than for the NCAA. So we simply bring our students in with every expectation that there are students first and athletes second.
More has been learned about Brigham Young University in a little over a decade than in the previous 100 years because of the passing ability of 6 BYU quarterbacks who have written and rewritten the record book since 1972, when head coach Lavelle Edwards took over the team. The main thrust of Brigham Young's offense, the forward pass.
We've stayed with it. That's probably the single biggest factor, and that is that the last 12, 13 years, we haven't changed much. We just keep adding to it and refining it, and we feel like now that we've got a pretty good system.
The 14-year history of the Brigham Young passing attack under Coach Edwards is unparalleled in college football history.
Well, when you're recruiting an athlete, you look for different characteristics that he has, and of course, number one, you have to begin with physically if he has the ability to throw the ball and if he has good, quick feet. Every quarterback we've had, I think with the exception of Steve Young, is redshirted a year and has had to wait for 3 years before he's had the opportunity to play. Everything is pretty well kept in perspective here, and we have high-caliber young men that work hard, maybe not always the greatest athletes and the greatest speed, but certainly kids with great character. And so consequently, over the past few years, we won a lot of games, close games in the fourth quarter, where we've had to come from behind, and I think that all ties into just the way the school is.
Perhaps the most incredible result of the Brigham Young passing system took place last year, when Robbie Bosco became their starting quarterback. Before the 1984 season began, Bosco saw little action. He was the backup quarterback behind Brigham Young passing stars Jim McMahon and Steve Young.
Being the quarterback here at BYU, you need to be patient. You need to wait that 2, maybe 3 years before you get your chance to be the starting quarterback. And I got to watch Jim play, and then I watched Steve play for a couple years, and just learning from their experiences, what they went through, and how they handled pressure situations, really helped me through my 2 years being the starting quarterback.
Last year, Robbie Bosco, in his first starting season as quarterback, led Brigham Young to the national championship. 13 straight victories, including a bowl game win over Michigan. Robbie Bosco is in his final season of college football. The 6th Brigham Young quarterback to become a candidate for the Heisman Memorial Trophy. Campus of the University of Iowa. It is named after Niall Kinnick, who as a running and passing quarterback for Iowa, was the finest football player in the country in 1939. Niall Kinnick, All-American, Maxwell Trophy winner, and winner of the 1939 Heisman Trophy, defeating the great Tommy Harmon of Michigan, who would go on to win the trophy the following year. This is 22-year-old quarterback Chuck Long of Iowa. In this, his final season with the Hawkeyes, Long's amazing passing performances have established several Big Ten records and have placed him among the leading candidates for this year's Heisman Trophy. An honor that has eluded Iowa football players for almost a half-century.
Niall Kinnick's a big name around this part of the country because he's the only Iowa Heisman Trophy winner. And he won it a long time ago, but his name is mentioned a lot. We have our stadium named after him, and it's kind of fun being associated with a Heisman Trophy winner.
Long is one of the most accurate passers in the history of college football. Last year, he completed almost 70% of his passes and threw for 22 touchdowns. And though he had 1 year of eligibility left, it was thought that he might forego the 1985 season to accept a lucrative contract to play pro ball. He chose to play a final season with Iowa.
I really had 3 basic reasons. I wanted another chance to go to the Rose Bowl because it's such a glamorous bowl. It's an attractive bowl to go to, and it's a lot of fun out there. I was out there when I was a freshman in '81. Another reason was because I'm graduating this semester, and I wanted to end football and graduate all at the same time, and not worried to have to come back to school from a year of professional football. You only live once, and I enjoy college football. I enjoy the college scene. It's a lot of fun, and I want to make the most of it while I'm here.
Long's strength and accuracy make him difficult to defend against. These are perhaps the main reasons why he will be one of the players most sought after by professional football teams. His passing records are staggering. He holds the NCAA record for consecutive completed passes, 22 straight against Indiana last year, and finished the game with 26 out of 30 for a completion average of almost 90%. Last year against Texas, he threw for 6 touchdown passes and a total of 491 yards. At the season's end, Long finished 7th in the Heisman balloting. This year, he continued where he left off, breaking the Big Ten scoring record for most passing touchdowns in a season and most touchdowns for a collegiate career. In 1973, John Cappelletti of Penn State was awarded the Heisman Trophy. In his acceptance speech, Cappelletti paid tribute to his inspiration, his young brother who was afflicted with an incurable disease.
If I could dedicate this trophy to him tonight and give him a couple days of happiness, this is worth everything.
For Chuck Long, there is a similar relationship. His younger brother, Andy.
Andy's a very special person in my life, and he does put football in perspective in a good way, because Andy was born with cerebral palsy, and because of his handicap has caused great motivation in my life, and he's just an inspiration every time I go out on the football field each Saturday. You know, he kind of makes the losses seem just so trivial compared to what he's been through. Just kind of look at someone like Andy and just realize that he'd give anything to be in my shoes, he'd give anything to be normal, and I'm just fortunate to have the ability, the God-given ability to play football.
22-year-old Chuck Long from Wheaton, Illinois. He led Iowa to a 10-1 record in the Big Ten championship this year. Now, along with the rest of us, he awaits the announcement. Back after these messages.
It is 50 years since Jay Berwanger of the University of Chicago was named the first winner of the Heisman Trophy. What is this Heisman Trophy? This award for individual excellence. The award is a symbol, given in a single name to honor all those who achieve greatness. A symbol of excellence. It is perhaps best explained in the words of Joe Paterno.
I think the Heisman Trophy is a wonderful thing for college football generally, and for a particular player who wins it. It gives somebody a legitimate goal to try to be the best. And I think that this country was made great because of that. People who are willing to make the sacrifices, pay the price, discipline themselves, both physically and mentally, to be a little bit different than everybody else. And I think our people need to identify with heroes. Does it stand for some guy that runs for 9 million yards, but he's a bum? Or does it stand for somebody that all of us can identify with, that's standing above the crowd, who was paid the price to be great, be willing to be unique and to make a difference? God knows this world needs more people who are willing to make a difference.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now ready to name the 51st winner of the Heisman Memorial Trophy. Here is the chairman of the Heisman Trophy Committee, Tony Shosha. Tony?
Thank you and good evening. On behalf of the Heisman Trophy Committee, we wish to thank the Heisman electors throughout the country whose vote each year maintains the integrity of the Heisman balloting process. At this time, it is indeed my pleasure to introduce Gene Meyer, president of the Downtown Athletic Club, who will announce this year's winner.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Downtown Athletic Club, the home of the Heisman Trophy. All of us are most proud of this trophy and of the athletes whose names are inscribed on it. With the announcement today, I would remind you that the trophy will embark upon its second half-century as an inspiration for all those young men who strive for excellence in college football. So on behalf of the members of our club, it's my privilege to announce this year's winner of the Heisman Memorial Trophy. In the closest vote in the history of this trophy, the winner is, from Auburn University, Bo Jackson.
Congratulations, Bo.
Thank you. Bo, come on over. Take a look at it. It was the closest vote in Heisman history, a difference of only 45 votes. The previous closest, 1961, Ernie Davis of Syracuse over Bob Ferguson of Ohio State by 53 votes. Were you beginning to get worried, all the talk leading up to it, that it was going to be the closest ever?
Well, I figured that it was going to be close and it was going to come down to the wire, and I just prepared myself for whatever the outcome was going to be.
Preparing yourself for the future. Baseball? Football?
After Auburn, I'll just play ball.
A small note of controversy. Some detractors said that you had pulled yourself out of some key games this year with some injuries that you might have played through. What's your response to that?
Well, the only thing that I can say about that is I know what I can do, and I am not a quitter. And if I feel that it's necessary for me to take myself out of competition, it's not because I'm a coward.
Will you be ready for the Cotton Bowl?
I'm looking forward to it.
What does winning the Heisman Trophy mean to Bo Jackson?
It means a great deal. It's something that I've looked at over the years and watched the former players win it, and it's a tradition, and I'm going to try to do everything in my power to uphold that tradition.
Bo Jackson, congratulations.
Thank you.
May we have Chuck Long of Iowa. Chuck? Chuck Long, ladies and gentlemen, the closest vote in history. What does that make you think about?
Well, it was a lot of fun. You know, I enjoyed the race, and, you know, it's building up for the last 3 weeks now, and I'm glad it's over. I'd like to congratulate Bo Jackson on the award, and it was fun being a part of the closest race in a long time.
How much did you think about the Heisman during the course of a season in which Iowa went 10-1?
I really didn't think about it much at all, to be honest with you. You know, I was just happy that the Downtown Athletic Club invited me out this year, and I was just happy. I was honored to be in the running for the Heisman Trophy all year long, but I didn't really think about it too much. I was more worried about how our team was going to do this year, and I wanted to be a part of a good team this year that went to the Rose Bowl, and fortunately that came true.
Your younger brother, Andy, we saw in the film piece, cerebral palsy victim. Were you thinking about him as the announcement was pending?
Yeah, I was. You know, that was a nice piece before the announcement on NBC, and I was thinking about it. He's been in my every thought this year, in every game and every practice, and I dedicated this season to him and my other brother David and my parents and my girlfriend Lisa, and it's been a great year. It really has.
6'3" Chuck Long, so this podium worked out extremely well, ladies and gentlemen. Just stay right down there, Chuck. Bo Jackson is the winner of the 51st Heisman Trophy as the Heisman Trophy embarks upon the second half-century of its history. Chuck Long of Iowa, a very close runner-up. I'm Bob Costas. For all of us at NBC Sports, thank you for being with us today from the Downtown Athletic Club in New York City.
The winner of the Heisman Memorial Trophy. A symbol. A symbol of excellence.
That it does in this one. Ken Bell takes it 4 yards deep, and they'll start from the 20. Elway rifles it incomplete, trying for his tight end Clarence. 3 wide receivers, Jackson, Johnson, and Natil on 2nd and 10. Delay to Sewell. Sewell did a great job of playing off his blocks. 3,500 yards in his career, and he's number 4 all time. But Sewell is simply a better receiver. Winder gets the call out to the 35-yard line.
the running game out of the shotgun.
2nd and 5, Elway in the center. Jackson to midfield, brought down by Eugene Robinson. Broncos just inside Seattle territory. Winder got about 4 and talking to Bill. Comes the blitz. Away for Jackson. Just overthrown. Catches the last 2 weeks, and here's the crowd. Ball tipped at the line of scrimmage. Incomplete. There's a flag.
Guessing a little bit.
3rd and 1. No way. In the game, and Sewell will go out on a wing. Shotgun on 4th and 1. Quick kick. Elway did it twice a week ago. And a great job. Seattle starts from just outside its own 2. Warner. Maybe a yard and no more. Sure.